Awesome, thank you. All right, so please stand off here. Nazu's assistant professor of practice in the Ag and Resource Economics. You guys just go by AREC, right?
Yes.
Okay, AREC, as the cool kids say. So she's going to be talking about a really, I feel like I'm talking more to the camera for this, we'll watch later. A really interesting way to look at having groups within undergraduate classes,
yes.
undergraduate classes, which is always something that we're always struggling with / trying to learn better methods of doing that. So I'm going to let you take over. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate this opportunity to come here and discuss this project with you guys, and really appreciate for the Norton Teaching series, and the series itself I think is a wonderful opportunity for us to get together, talk about teaching, and so yeah, as Tim said, today we are actually talking about interesting topic on group work. So I think I want to do a poll for our audience. How many of you actually are having group assignments or group work in your class? Please raise your hand. Yes. So how many of you actually love the group assignment that students do, or not so much?
I like the assignment.
But all the written work in the middle. Yes. So that's the focus of today on the group work. Okay. Now this group work, this project is collaborating with Professor Roger Brown and Jordan Shockley from University of Kentucky, where I had my PhD 2 years ago. I finished, and so the original idea from pedagogy side is from Roger Brown. So he had this idea and using this authentic learning opportunities, authentic learning pedagogy to address some of the concerns of group work. Now, and in Jordan's class and my class, it's kind of preview now, actually we run a treatment and control group to test the effectiveness of this method. Okay? So, as our pool almost offers use group work in our classroom, and there are good reasons for that. Literature has documented that group work, especially with students working in small groups, helps them to learn. So with respect to deeper learning, and they have better information retention, and they have better communication and teamwork skills. Okay, and also from the employer side, literature has been long time documented that employers actually are increasingly demanding these skills that group work actually trying to transfer, especially on the soft skills, the communication and teamwork side. So motivated by this, even though we all know there are so many downfalls on the group work, we still use group work in our practice. Okay, now group work experience on the employer side in the real world, it feels like, at least at the surface, group work seems good. People can work together and can deliver some very productive outcomes. Now, students have all kinds of phases on group work. If on the first day of class, on the syllabus saying, okay, this percentage of grade is coming from group work, and then almost for sure, some students will come to me after class saying that, how do we want to organize this group work? So now I want to, you guys kind of talk with each other and think about your experience with what are some common complaints from your students about group assignments, and what are some strategies you already tried, either it's worked wonderfully or still need some improvement. I would like some idea before we move on this part. Okay, so Holly.
We're going to talk in small groups ourselves, or is it a whole group conversation?
I want you guys talk to each other first. Yes, let's do a same picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
My students complain that the other person groups, and if it's like a pair, if it's two people, that the other person either won't do anything. That's usually what it is. The other person isn't doing anything. Yeah, and it all levels, freshmen all the way up to seniors. I mean, the seniors seem to do better mid-semester, but like towards the end of the semester. I had a group presentation at the end of the semester in the fall, and like quite a couple emailed me and said, I just want you to know that my partner did absolutely nothing.
And I had a student.
I'm dealing with that right now. Yeah, do you have a strategy that you use to get the classes?
No, I don't. I mean, basically with the freshmen, because it was like the group projects were earlier, I really tried to help them. Like I set up in D2L their groups with links so they could email each other because they might not know each other. It was a big class. And I said like, reminders, and if a group told me early enough that they couldn't contact somebody, I would step in an email, or I would recommend that they email them and CC me so that they can see that I'm included in that. But basically what and the group projects in my freshman class are all done through Google Docs that are shared with me, so I can go in and see who contributed what. So if one group member contributed nothing on the actual paper, they got a 0 on the paper. If they came and presented, they got a presentation grade on what they did, but they got, even if they didn't help with the poster, I couldn't tell who did the poster. I only had to go on what they said. And so with the seniors, I said, if they're not going to help, you're going to have to do it because your grade depends on it. Was pretty much what I said.
I like your using
Oh yeah, it took a long time. Because I had to go in, you had to go through every level of like who did what.
The thing that I use, the only thing that you didn't mention is, well, group contracts
Right.
The thing that right now is called surveys. Yeah, I've always done it in the semester.
Like peer review. I do that in one class.
So I know too about that evaluation piece either, but I feel like I don't know. How do I know if there were big problems? So
I have to see people and we're behind them, they're ever consequences, but I can tell what to do now. So you can say, I've done nothing, you need to do this. There's a lot
they
of
do, but this is only the second time that I've done it.
So they have to
Yeah.
individually.
The other thing, the problem with that though is when it's a paired assignment, they peer review, it's not going to be anonymous anymore. If your peer evaluates you poorly, that's
true, no, you're right. I don't do it anonymous, but I know my groups are anonymous. My groups are anonymous.
right.
So I
It's
always like
easier
to
to
like
say,
have
like,
like
careful.
because then
So
I
I hate
Exactly.
to cut
I
off
teach a workshop class, and the whole class is group work. All semester we work as one group, all of us. And they do peer reviews,
it seems
and it's
it
a
is a
big part of their grade.
a topic that we have a lot of experience about. So let's share some of the main complaints. Students don't like. Yes, sir.
Oh, this isn't students don't like,
Uh-huh.
like students don't work. Like there's always that group member that's not contributing.
Yeah, the free rider program. Yeah, in the group, and yes. What else besides this?
They say it's hard to find time outside of class to do it.
Yes, coordinate the meeting time in outside the classroom. Yes, sorry.
I was going to say the same thing, finding time to work.
Yeah. Now, let's dig deeper, maybe under free rider program. So on that, what do you think that some of the design that encourage that, or some of the strategies actually can kind of check on that on the free riding program? Yes.
So I did a very large group project in my gen ed class with 120 students in groups of 4, and they had to do all of their paper had to be done in Google Docs and shared with me, and it was very time consuming, but I went through every version of each paper to see who contributed what, And if they didn't contribute, they got a 0. So like if they didn't participate in the group paper, and then there was a presentation too with a poster, which was much harder for me to tell who did what on the poster. But the bulk of the grade was the paper. So if they didn't contribute to the paper, they got a 0.
Yeah.
Even if they showed up to present.
Right. The accountability part that you use a Google Doc, basically the technology helpers to say who actually contributes. But I really, really respect and admire you that take on this task on this 125.
I didn't do it again this semester.
I think,
why not? Well, it was a learning experience for all of us.
I really appreciate that effort there. I think all of us really strive to serve our students or educate our students the best. But one way we think about this is that think about the real world in the sense of we working in a university institution. Now, the leaders or the different, we have college, we have universities, the accountability for each employer fall into the college dean or university president. Do they pay attention or hold everyone accountable by looking at everyone's working load or how well they work?
They look at your annual review.
They do, but annual review I actually just done with my department head.
But we have peer review, which is included.
Yes. So you get the structure of the real world and in classroom. So I was going to say that the free rider problem is a legit problem even in the real world. But the real world we are doing is that we have instituted layers of management that actually the top managers didn't micromanage everyone, but as long as they hold the middle managers accountable, that will have the work. So that's how the work gets done. So now that's kind of preview of the thinking of authentic learning environment. Now the literature has documented 3 general complaints about students' group work. One is they don't like the group formation process. Some of the free writing program kind of comes to that too when they kind of complain, okay, so and so never done the work. I do not want to be a team member with him or her. So why you assign or how I can change that? The group forming is there. Individual grading process related to our free writing too, in the sense that students feel like I deserve more. Okay, why I do the work and others share my contribution. And then there is meeting schedule for the group work. Now, with these 3 major complaints, we are thinking in this project how as an instructor can kind of tackle these complaints given the learning environment we have now. Okay? So the pedagogy that we are relying on is called authentic learning. So this is a stream of literature starting from the situated learning. The idea here is the knowledge that happened in teaching and learning is not only abstract, it happens in certain content. And we should connect the content that uses this knowledge when we are teaching it. Now, that authentic learning practice cause the instructor not only maybe solely rely on some ad hoc personal examples or some real-world examples in the teaching lecture, but to strive to create a more authentic learning environment to the students such that they know how the knowledge is used after they learned it. So in the way that knowledge itself is not the end, but it's the beginning to apply it. So authentic learning kind of similar with the experiential learning that we are talking about, both emphasize on the real world experience, but experiential learning kind of go one way beyond, for example, really put students in the situation of real world, like internship, like inviting a panel from the industry. But authentic learning is saying that, okay, we take our normal classroom or online class as a given. This is our learning and teaching environment. Then how instructor can, through their course design, through their activity design, so that provide this authenticity of the learning activities. Okay, so that is the pedagogy part we are relying on. Now, Harrison and Oliver 2000 actually described or summarized these 9 principles of authentic learning, and then 2006 they actually applied it to higher education. So that is from K-12 to higher education. This is a pedagogy that they are trying to kind of formalize. So the idea here is first provide authentic context in a way that, yes, we do some examples in our teaching, but the example can be more comprehensive to a case study, for example, and then provide authentic activities. The idea here is you probably are solving a problem that is happening in the real world of your profession and connect students with that problem through the class design. And then here, the highlight is the coaching part. So the idea here is, yes, we lecture the knowledge, but the coaching part, when we design the authentic activity or environment, it's more calling on the instructor to do more of a coaching work, in the sense that instead of directly answer the question about how to solve, but give them the tools, guide them to, okay, if I were facing this problem, what is the next step for me to learn or to solve the problem? So it's more connected to the metacognitive level on the coaching part and the instructor's role. And also, in the end, provide this authentic assessment of learning, and you will see how we use this authentic assessment process in this project. Okay. Now the idea here is, based on this authentic learning pedagogy, we kind of, by we, I mean mainly my co-author, Professor Roger Brown, he came up with this idea called project manager and private contract model. So just to draw the similarity between the real world and the classroom. So in the real world, usually, especially in the business world, usually if a CEO has a major task, and then the CEO usually calls on what they call the project managers to assign this task to project managers. Once project manager receive this task, they in turn recruit the private contractors they think that are capable to solve this problem, and then gather his or her team from a project manager's perspective and solve the problem. So here we are trying to mimic that real world process in the way that instructor being the CEO and project manager is forming the group in the way that project manager will be elected from the class. And then the private contractor that are naturally, we will discuss the forming later in detail. Now the project manager recruit their private contractor. That's the forming of their groups. And then on the grading individuals, that instead of instructor really over, yes, the instructor will still have the final say about the grade, but the private manager that have more, they have more oversight on the grading by recommending their grade or even distribute the bonuses to their private contractors, to their team members. And then scheduled meeting here is basically the team usually meet during the regular business hours, meaning that we do allocate certain class times to do the group project, which calls on more of a, you can call it a converting classroom or flipped classroom style. Okay, so on this group work. Now, these 3 components, so the project manager and private contractor approach kind of embedded that to have this authenticity so that we can address hopefully we can address these three student complaints compared to our traditional approach. Now let me go to detail about these three practices with the private manager and project manager and private contract model. So on the group forming, at the beginning of the semester, the whole class, usually at the first week, the instructor will solicit 1 page of resume from every student, okay, and make this resume available to all students. So basically, you are creating a transparent market for matching, okay, for a match in different rooms in the class. And then once this is done, there will be one class section is allocated to do this election for the project managers, so-called, it's our group leader basically. So they are asked to give a 1-minute speech to their whole fellow students saying why I should be, why I want to be a project manager. So it's almost like mimicking the interview or election, so that everyone has everyone's CV and also have this 1-minute speech, so that the whole class will vote for our project manager. Now, once students actually rank each other, and basically the CEO is an instructor to see this ranking and pick our project managers among the student group. Once this is done, the project manager then in turn has the responsibility to recruit their private contractor or team members, because the project manager has all the CVs with them. So intentionally we kind of have this idea in mind that to mimic the matching in the job market the best we can. Yes.
Sorry, I don't know if you want to take questions now.
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
So I'm just wondering, so like I don't teach in the business world.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the incentive for a student to be a project manager? Why did they, maybe you'll get to that, but I'm just curious about, like, 'cause I don't know, what if nobody signs up to be what if no one wants to be a project manager?
That's a great question. Actually, so this semester, I tried this semester the first time in my class, and I got this question right away. And after I talked, my students said, I don't think I will be the project manager. So again, I will guide you back to the real world. Why do you think there's incentive for people to be promoted in their administrative level? So there is monetary bonus in the real world. So in the class, to incentivize the student leaders step up to really take on this managerial work for the group, you can give 10% bonus only for the project manager. So that's the practice has been done. And in my class, actually, what I did is, yes, I want to give the incentive for them, but not upfront. So I actually saying all this group work for the top 2 teams in the grading, then the project manager gets bonus. Okay, and then we will go to the grading part to say, actually, project manager has more say about the bonus point. Okay, so here is thanks for the question. Now, next step is project manager really recruit their private sector to form the team, to finish the forming of the team process. Now, compared to tradition, so in literature we kind of documented there are 3 ways that traditionally we do the assign of the group. Yes, Tori.
Well, I don't talk, you can put this question on hold, but if you go back to the previous slide, in my real class, there would be a few students that nobody wants because they have a bad reputation, because they are part of a cohort and everybody knows they don't do work. What happens in this kind of model when nobody wants the non-workers?
Yes, I think that's why the instructor solicited this CVs in the first place. It's really a promotion tool. I tell my students, not only the project manager should promote themselves if you want to step up as a student leader, but the private contractor, you should promote yourself too to be a good team member, to contribute to the team. And I tell a student that if in the end of the day you do not have a team, you have to do all the group work yourself, which is a lot of work. Which, yes, so
nobody picks them, they do it all like you were saying.
So I do kind of want to really motivate those students too. You need to know first how you can contribute and then promote on that point. So basically, really, the real world self-promotion and all this strong market matching idea there. Now, in the traditional way, we have 3 ways, as I said. One is randomly assigned, which actually, as a control group in our study, is what the control group is doing. Now, random assigned merely mimics the real world because we self-selected to certain career, and with business world, if there's a task, the team always assigned with specialties. It's not random assigned. And another is the second one is instructor usually intentionally assign groups based on certain characteristics. For example, GPA, for example, the diversity, the gender, everything. And literature has talked about this. But our concern is that this process usually seems obscure and it seems mystery to the students, and thereby they are not so confident about who am I assigned to. So there's that concern. Now the third one is students pick their team member themselves. Now this has its pros and cons. The pro is it's easier for them to gather a group. The cons, usually the outcome would be better students with better students, pro students with pro students. So I think this approach on project manager and private contractor in the group forming process at least takes the advantage of self-select part, but also have this design or authenticity embedded so that it's performance driven instead of more convenience. I want to be a group with my friend. So that is the first one. Now, second one on the individual grading part. Once the project manager takes on this leadership role, it works really like mimics the structures in the business world that all the group assignment that instructor assigned, basically that grade is the basic grade for the project manager. You can think about it as a basic pay for the project manager. So then it's project manager's responsibility to recommend grade of their team members to the instructor. Now, they have the right or the responsibility that to change the private contractor's grade as long as their average is the base grade they are getting. So in the case that they want to kind of to reward students in this teamwork, they did more. So they can assign more grade even than themselves. But then, to apply the rule, they have to take some points off from those students they think don't deserve that grade. Okay, so there is this constraint here. And there are bonus. Now the bonus part is directly to the project manager. The idea here is the CEO or the instructor sees the group work as the work of private contract, as the work of project manager. So basically, the instructor really holds the project manager accountable, but also give project manager the tools to hold their private contractor accountable in the way that they have the right to adjust the grade as long as the average is the same with the base grade and with the bonus. The project manager has one of the two options. One is he or she can keep it for themselves. Okay, so that's he or she, his or her choice, or the project manager can choose to distribute to, again, another tool to provide incentives for their team members. Okay, now this is a part, this is a base model. We feel like there are many extensions of this, this practice, and this part is I feel is most exciting or interesting to me because it provides a framework actually to test the incentives on the employee side that we can test in our classroom. And to be honest, this is one way to address, but it doesn't address all the problem. Okay, the result actually can show some of the
So, as you know, I'm not an academic, but is the delegation of grading to an undergrad, is that an okay thing to do in a university environment?
That's a very good question. So the idea here is that's why we say what they say is the recommendation to the instructor about the grade. And when we do the recommendation, now the project contractor and the project manager has a negotiation or communication within themselves. And when project manager recommends the grade, they have to write down the word justifications. And it is instructor's call in the end for the final grade. Yeah. So that is this part. Now, instructor do officially assign the individual grade in the end. Okay. Now, traditionally, the way we adjust this group work grading is usually to ask students, for one, if you don't do any adjustment, everyone gets the same grade, there's no incentive. That kind of encourage the free riding problem. Now, if we want to adjust, we either adjust with ask students about the contributions within the group and adjust that. This approach is competitive inherently, so it provides that environment, that the group environment that maybe they don't want to get involved. And then another way is ask certain criteria. How often or how often each member will make their group meeting, and how well is their work, their part of work can grade on that criteria. But either of these ways, students usually can respond with very strategic respondings, either everything the same, or if we, as instructor, again, we have asymmetric information with how the group works. So we really, it's very time-consuming, like rolling heads down, time-consuming to step in really to detect what's going on in the group. So that's kind of comparing to the traditional grading part. Now, the last one is on the meeting schedule. So here is really the instructor's choice. Now, this method calling on instructors actually allocate more class time for the group work, especially if this group work is semester long and extensive and is demanding. Okay, so the idea here is, so whenever we can work in class because it's scheduled class time, we don't have an excuse about cannot schedule time. And whenever they have to meet outside, the students find it harder. Therefore, that there are those complaints. So here, calls on the instructor to kind of think more about flip the classroom practice and put maybe on some more lectures online, and so calls on that practice. But we do let students know that even in the real world, you need to work on a project. Sometimes, most of the time, it's between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. But sometimes you need to work extra hours to deliver things. Now, there are expectations about working out of class, even in the treatment group. But in the control group, traditionally, some of the work, for example, case discussions or some Excel programs, about 30% is done in class. But the majority of them actually is done outside the class that rely on the team function well outside the class. So that's the traditional or the control group is doing. So our project here is really to empirically test whether this type of project manager and private contractor practice address students' attitudes, the main complaints about group work, whether actually it improves that. Now, we use a difference in difference design, and to be less of a technical, for difference in different design to be valid method to do, there are 3 conditions they need to meet. First one is that the treatment should be exogenous to the grouping. Because these 2 groups, treatment and control, are from 2 institutions, there's no way actually students self-select to one another, so the exogenous condition meets. Now the second one is these 2 groups should be comparable, or we call it the parallel condition, in the way that before the treatment, these 2 treatments should look similar, or at least have similar trend. So these 2 classes, treatment and control, they are both taught by the early career full-time assistant professor, and the instructor's teaching experience is similar, about 3 years. And the content of the class are very similar. They are advanced undergrad finance class taught in the agriculture economic department. And both institutions are large public land institutions. Number of students, treatment have 28, control have 26, and semester taught, one is in fall 2017, one is spring 2018. And on the student background, if you take a look, those are self-reported student information. Sorry about small font. Now, the distribution, the similarity of the distribution is what we are trying to look at. These 2 classes, they have very similar cumulative GPA from their student body. Similar class standing because both are senior / cross-list with graduate students. So majority are senior students. And then they have very similar paid working experience with the student body. And they, 3 things are significant different in the distribution. One is the treatment group seems older than the control group with the student body, and the treatment group are expecting higher grade in this class. And the treatment group actually thinks the group project is less common in their other college classes. So the idea here is that maybe these 2 institutions have 2 different environments to implement the group work in general. So all these differences are controlled in our further analysis. So that's the test. Now, that's treatment and control. To implement a different difference, we still need a before and after. So what we did is to use the retrospective pre-test survey in the way that we only have 2 classes, but we ask students about their experience, 2 different kind of experience. First is, what do you think about this 6 statement about forming group, grading group, scheduled meeting, and overall attitude towards group in your earlier classes, in your previous classes? And then think about this 6 statement again in this class, meaning that this class is the class either with the private contract and project manager and private contractor treatment, or the traditional method. Okay, so that's how we get before and after. These statements are students are responding with 6 Likert style the Likert style questions, meaning that strongly disagree, agree, neutral, and strongly agree. Okay, so that is the skill on the question. Now, here is a typical difference in difference chart. There is difference comparison with the before group between the treatment and control and after group. And there is difference between the treatment group before and after, same as the control group before and after. And then indifference is these two difference. Do one more difference, and then you say the one in red gives you the idea of how students respond really to their new treatment, which is the project manager and private contractor practice. So here you see that the number I need to explain, the higher the number, the more towards strongly agree. Okay, the lower number is strongly disagree. Now, we can see that comparing with our different results, students in the control group are more agree that these forming groups reflect the real world, and they like the group forming process. Somehow they feel the grading process was fair and easier meeting for them, and generally they like the class group project more. The only one didn't show difference is whether you like the grading process. So if we only compare the treatment group before and after, it does show some improvement on student attitude about the group process. But once we control for the control group, that effect goes away. Okay? So that's without any regression analysis, just compare these responses using the t-test. Now later, because we may worry about those confronting factors that earlier I showed you, the treatment group and the control group, their age are different, their expected grade are different, and how common it is the group work on campus are different. So we did add all the controls in and use our Alder's logic regression model to basically double check about our difference results. Now, again, that's the controls we are adding in. The results here is very similar once the control is there. Still, we see that this project improves students' attitude about how they think about the forming group, whether it's real or not, whether they liked the group forming process, and whether they think the grading is fair, and also whether they think it's easier to find time together. In general, they liked the group work better. Now, the one didn't show difference again is whether they like the group, they like the grading process. Okay. Now, so with the with all the logic model, the coefficient, the magnitude is hard to interpret unless we change it to the marginal effect. So here we have some magnitude that we can interpret. If we choose the strongly agree part, okay, when we transfer to the marginal effect, it basically shows that 36.4% that the students exposed to this private project manager and private contract methods, 36.4% they are more likely to strongly agree that scheduling meeting was easy, and then 27% improvement on strongly agree about forming group, and then 24% improvement to strongly agree about the grading process was fair. So basically, the main takeaway here is it seems that empirically the students' attitude about group assignment has improved by the treatment, and the improvement actually has an order. It seems that in conclusion, they feel like the scheduling benefits is the first attribute contribute to their attitude change, and then the second one is about group forming benefits, and the last one is grading benefits. Okay. Now, a little bit comment on why we think. So here, the lighter grading process, there's no change between the treatment and control. So the treatment group, the instructor recalled that even though the project manager has all these tools to do the different, to provide different incentives to their team members, most of the time they don't use it. There's still average grade for everyone. And maybe that's a way they communicate with the team members saying, okay, this is how we do the work in the group, and everyone share the same grade. Now, that is very similar compared to the control group. The traditional method, you still, even with the adjustment with the peer evaluation survey, there is not so significant adjustment on the group individual grades. So that's our kind of suspicion of why this method didn't improve students' attitude about the grading process. Yes?
Did the project managers keep the bonus for themselves, or did they share it?
That's a very good question. So in my class, actually project manager, because I lay out how it works in the first day with the syllabus, so in their 1-minute speech, actually quite a few students use this to promote themselves, saying that I promise if I was elected, I will share my bonus.
Got it.
So that is,
Okay.
yes, yes, yes.